Have you ever been told that when your children wound you deeply, the strongest move is to disappear? Stop calling. Stop checking in. Stop showing up. They call it no contact. They say your absence will finally teach them your value. That when you go quiet, they'll suddenly hear everything they ignored. But let me ask you something, softly, honestly, from one weathered heart to another. Has silence ever truly healed you? Or has it only left you alone with unanswered questions echoing through long nights? Maybe your grown child became distant. Maybe their tone hardened. Maybe you slowly felt pushed out of the life you once centered your world around. So you stepped back, hoping your absence would speak louder than your love ever did. You told yourself they'll notice. They'll miss me. They'll come back different. But days turned into weeks. Weeks stretched into months. And somewhere along the way, a heavier thought crept in. What if they don't come back? What if they don't even notice I'm gone? That fear sits quietly, but it cuts deep, especially for parents later in life who have already given so much. Here's something rarely said out loud. Silence is not always strength. Sometimes there is something far more powerful than disappearing. Something impossible to ignore. Something that changes everything. It isn't your absence. It's your becoming. We live in a world obsessed with strategy. Ignore them and they'll chase. Pull away and they'll feel guilty. We're taught to treat silence like a weapon, as if pain proves importance. But silence can be misunderstood. Or worse, it can be ignored. When you stop reaching out, they don't always reflect. Sometimes they adapt. They tell themselves stories to stay comfortable. They're overreacting. This is for the best. I was right to step back. And while you're holding on to quiet like armor, hoping it stirs something in their heart, they may be learning how to live without you. That's a hard truth, but an important one. Silence alone doesn't always land the way we imagine. And if it's used only to spark guilt, it slowly loses its power. But don't mistake that for weakness. Your power hasn't vanished. It's simply shifted. Real power isn't found in saying nothing. It's found in what happens while you're quiet. Not that you stopped speaking, but that you started changing. While they assume you're waiting, hurting, stuck in yesterday, something unexpected begins to happen. You begin to rebuild. You open that old notebook again. You walk each morning, not to be seen but to feel alive. You read. You breathe. You reconnect with the parts of yourself that existed long before approval was withheld. And that kind of growth sends ripples, whether a word is spoken or not. One day, they may return expecting the version of you that needed them. The one who bent. The one who waited. Instead, they find someone grounded. Peaceful. Whole. In that moment, that's the one that stays with them. Not because you disappeared, but because you no longer revolve around them. You didn't withdraw to punish. You stepped back to heal. You didn't shrink to make them feel loss. You expanded to rediscover yourself. That's when their hold breaks, not through silence but through self-respect. Every relationship reflects something back to us. When someone mistreats you, they expect you to remain small, predictable, dependent. They're comfortable when you stay where they left you. But growth disrupts that comfort. When you stop reacting and begin responding with quiet strength, you hold up a mirror they don't want to face. Because it shows them something unsettling. You didn't break. You didn't beg. You didn't disappear. You evolved. And that reflection doesn't scream. It doesn't accuse. It simply reveals. The goal was never to vanish so they'd come running. The goal is to become so complete that their return or absence no longer defines your worth. Your peace. Your freedom. Your gentle joy. That's what unsettles those who once believed they controlled your place in the story. Yes, this path is not easy, especially after years of giving, sacrificing, and showing up. Being asked to give space too can feel unfair. But maybe space isn't punishment. Maybe it's permission. Not to disappear but to breathe. Not to retreat but to grow. You're not losing them. You're finding yourself again. So if you're clinging to silence as your final tool, try something even stronger. Build inside it. Let silence become soil, not a grave. Let it be where you grow into someone they never expected. Not from anger. From dignity. Because the greatest comeback isn't returning to who you were. It's becoming someone new. The real power isn't being missed. It's being unshakably whole, whether they return or not. Now imagine this. Someone who once walked away believing you'd always be waiting comes back. They expected a paused life, a smaller world. Instead, they find expansion. That realization hurts more than absence ever could. Because your growth shines a light on everything they avoided within themselves. They were wrong about you. They misjudged your strength. They underestimated your ability to rise without them. And that truth is hard to face. The deepest sting of losing someone isn't loneliness. It's realizing you no longer have emotional reach over them. Silence can be broken. Transformation cannot. Like stepping into a river twice. The water has moved on. And so have you. You're no longer waiting. You're living. Smiling again for your own reasons. Filling days with meaning, not permission. The discomfort they feel isn't that you're gone. It's that you're no longer available to define. This growth doesn't come from bitterness. It comes from clarity. Your worth was never granted by their presence. It always existed. Now you see it. So let go of silence used as punishment. People adjust to absence. But they never forget underestimating someone who rose. Thriving isn't pretending. It's rebuilding a life that feels good to you. Waking up to peace instead of waiting. This isn't revenge. It's release. Freedom arrives when you stop needing apologies to move forward. When your healing no longer depends on their guilt. When joy is no longer delayed by hope. You waited long enough. You are not invisible. You are becoming quietly, steadily, beautifully. And whether they ever acknowledge it or not, that evolution speaks louder than any words ever could. What truly changes everything isn't distance from them. It's closeness to yourself. When you stop living to be seen, a deeper peace arrives, steady, quiet, unshaken. That is real strength. Not control. Not winning. But self-mastery. Calm instead of reactive. Wise instead of desperate. You no longer need to be missed. You already know your worth. And if they ever look at you now and realize they can't reach you, it's not because you shut them out. It's because you outgrew the room. That's not revenge. That's healing. So if you're still hurting today, don't run from it. Use it. Let pain shape compassion. Let silence become growth. Start small. Read. Walk. Choose one act of self-respect today. And if they ever return, let your presence speak. Let your peace answer for you. You didn't disappear. You transformed. And that is more than enough. If this message touched you, share your story in the comments. Someone else may need your courage today. And remember this truth as you rebuild. My growth is my quiet freedom. Not because it hurts anyone else. Where healing meets wisdom and strength deepens with age. There comes a moment, quiet, almost unnoticed, when you realize something has shifted inside you. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It comes softly. One day you wake up and notice you didn't check your phone right away. You didn't replay the last conversation in your mind. You didn't ask yourself, what did I do wrong? And that moment matters more than you realize. Because for the first time, your peace didn't depend on someone else's behavior. Many parents carry a silent burden they rarely speak about. They blame themselves long after their children have moved on. They replay years, decisions, sacrifices, wondering where things went wrong. But let me tell you something gently. Distance does not always mean failure. And rejection does not erase the love you gave. Sometimes, adult children pull away not because you lack something, but because they don't yet know how to carry emotional responsibility. And instead of facing that discomfort, they choose distance. That pain you feel, it's real. But it is not proof of your worthlessness. It is proof of how deeply you loved. For a long time, silence may have felt like punishment. Long evenings, quiet holidays, empty chairs. But slowly, something changes when you stop waiting for the silence to end and start listening to what it offers. Silence gives you time. Time to notice how much emotional weight you've been carrying. Time to recognize how often you minimized yourself to keep peace. Time to see how often you apologized for simply wanting connection. And in that awareness, strength begins to grow. Not loud strength, not angry strength, but steady strength. You begin to understand that love does not mean self-erasure. That being a parent does not require lifelong emotional surrender. That respect should flow both ways, even across generations. This realization doesn't make you bitter. It makes you clear. Clear about what you will accept. Clear about what you will no longer chase. Clear about the truth that your life still holds meaning right now. Something else happens too. You stop explaining yourself. You stop writing long messages hoping they'll finally understand. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough about yourself to stop bleeding quietly. That's when your energy returns. You may not notice it at first, but it shows up in small ways. You sleep a little better. You breathe a little deeper. You smile without guilt. And slowly, the silence that once felt empty begins to feel spacious. This is where many parents feel confused. They ask themselves, am I becoming cold? Am I giving up? No. You are becoming grounded. There is a difference between closing your heart and protecting it. And what you are doing now is protection, not punishment. You are learning how to love without losing yourself. That is not selfish. That is wisdom. Here's something important to understand. If your child ever returns, and many do, they won't be responding to your silence. They will be responding to your stability. They will feel the difference in how you speak, in how you listen, in how you no longer overextend to be accepted. And that can feel unsettling to them. Because when you stop chasing connection, it forces others to look at how little effort they made. But remember this: their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is your well-being. You don't need to confront. You don't need to lecture. You don't need to prove anything. Your calm is enough. And whether they come back with understanding or never fully do, you are no longer suspended in waiting. Your life is moving forward. This is where true freedom begins. Not when relationships are repaired, but when your peace no longer depends on repair. You start choosing yourself in quiet ways. A walk in the morning. A conversation with someone who listens. An afternoon doing something you once postponed. These choices may seem small, but they are declarations. They say, I am still here. My life still matters. I am allowed to live fully. And that belief changes everything. So if you're listening right now and still feeling the ache, be patient with yourself. Healing does not rush. Strength does not shout. It settles in. And when it does, you'll realize something beautiful. You didn't lose your child. You found your balance. You didn't give up love. You stopped abandoning yourself. And that is not weakness. That is the quiet strength that comes with age, wisdom, and self-respect. There may come a day when the silence breaks. A message appears. A call comes through. A casual "how are you" lands as if nothing ever happened. And suddenly, your heart feels everything at once. Hope, fear, relief, and a quiet question you may be afraid to ask yourself. How do I respond without going back to who I was? This moment is more delicate than it seems. Because when someone returns after distance, they often expect familiarity. They expect access. They expect the old version of you, the one who adjusted, explained, and forgave quickly just to keep connection alive. But you are no longer that person. Not because you are colder, but because you are wiser. So let's talk about how to respond with strength, not self-betrayal. First, remember this. You do not owe immediate emotional access. A response does not require surrender. You are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to observe. You don't need to pour your heart out. You don't need to reopen old wounds. And you certainly don't need to pretend nothing hurt. Calm kindness is enough. A simple, grounded reply speaks volumes. It says, I am open, but I am not desperate. I am present, but I am not available for disrespect. This balance is new for you, and it may feel uncomfortable at first. That's okay. Growth often feels unfamiliar before it feels right. If they ask why you pulled away, resist the urge to over-explain. You are not on trial. You can speak truth gently. Without accusation. Without justification. Something as simple as, "I needed time to focus on my own well-being," is more powerful than any long explanation, because it reflects self-respect. Now here's something important many parents struggle with. If they come back without acknowledgement, without accountability, you are allowed to notice that. You don't need to punish. You don't need to demand apologies. But you do need to pay attention to patterns. Change is not proven by words. It's proven by consistency. And consistency takes time. So allow space. Let trust rebuild slowly, if it rebuilds at all. Reconnection does not mean returning to old dynamics. You are not obligated to resume emotional labor. You are not required to be endlessly available. Your peace matters now. And here's the most important truth of all. Even if they never fully come back, even if the relationship remains distant, you have not failed. Some relationships change shape with time. Some soften. Some remain limited. And that does not erase the love that once existed. You can love someone and still choose yourself. You can care without collapsing. You can remain open without being exposed. This is what emotional maturity looks like. Not bitterness. Not walls. But boundaries rooted in calm. You are no longer living from fear of loss. You are living from self-respect. And that changes how every relationship touches you. So if they return, welcome them with clarity, not urgency. If they don't, continue living fully anyway. Your life is not a waiting room. It is still unfolding. You still wake up each day with meaning, with wisdom, with a heart that has learned how to love without losing itself. That is the greatest gift age can give you. And if no one has told you this lately, let me say it clearly. You are not too much. You are not forgotten. You are not replaceable. You are becoming. And that is enough. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If these words spoke to you, share your thoughts below. Your story may help someone else feel less alone. This is Elderly Wisdom Strong Life, where healing deepens with age and strength grows quietly, one wise choice at a time. You are not behind. You are right on time.